had lots of ups and downs. When I got bedbound, my worst point, and then I started the program, the platinum program. This is exactly 1 year ago. I struggled to just close my mouth when chewing. I was dizzy, I had flu-like symptoms, I was fainting, I was nose bleeding. It was a lot of things going on. I had that feeling of dying 24/7. And I was kind of shocked. I was like, oh wow. 1 year later, I am living my life again. I'm thriving, I can work, I can travel, I can meet friends, I can do pretty much whatever I want to do, and I barely have symptoms. I'm traveling next week to visit a friend. That will actually be the first time flying in over 2.5 years. Very exciting. I'm looking forward to it. So it's quite physical, but I feel so normal and I feel so calm, peaceful and happy with my life. And I know that I have a few symptoms left, but they will fade away eventually with time. Just very grateful and happy, and I can do basically whatever I want to do.
How's it going, Thrivers? Miguel here from CFS Recovery. In this video, we have Johanna from Norway, and she's somebody who basically conquered CFS. She was dealing with this for a couple of years. At her worst, she was bedridden, extreme fatigue, dozens of symptoms, and was really just stuck for quite a while. And she's done a lot of work to really earn her life back and get to a place where she can go out again, she can travel, she can enjoy time with friends. And a lot of the goals she had when we initially started just over a year ago, and you're doing them now. And that's kind of your life you live now. So Johanna, you want to quickly introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Johanna. I'm 24 years old. I'm from Norway, and I first got sick in June 2022. I had lots of ups and downs, and then I got bedbound 1.5 years later, which was my worst point. And then I started the program, the platinum program. This is exactly 1 year ago, and then now 1 year later, I am living my life again. I'm thriving, I can work, I can travel, I can meet friends, I can do pretty much whatever I want to do, and I barely have symptoms. So I'm very grateful and very happy to be here.
Yeah, you definitely got your life back and then some. And it's exciting because, this is a new chapter you're starting in your life. But let's go back in time here, back in, it was 2021, you said, or 2022, where you got
2022.
2022. So leading up to getting, because a lot of people, they get COVID and that's kind of the final straw for them. What was life like leading up to that? Like, were you having symptoms before, or did this kind of just hit you out of nowhere?
Yeah, so if I go 6 months before I got I had just moved back home to Norway from a study abroad semester in Sweden, which was very busy and very fun. So I had just moved back home, and I was going to start writing my bachelor thesis, which was a lot of stress because I've always been a person who wanted to do really well in school, and I put a lot of pressure on myself. And yeah, I was working on it and I really wanted it to be good. So I never really took the time to rest or be like, okay, now I'm going to work, now I'm going to rest. I just constantly worked on it. So that was one thing that was stressful for my body. And then like a lot of things happened that those 6 months. I had a friend who got cancer, and she's fine. She's doing really well. And she also told me that she would be fine. But still, it was a big shock to me. I've never been so close to that illness, and that is kind of one of my biggest fears. So I was worried about her, obviously, because I care a lot about her. And yeah, it was just on the back of my mind all the time. I also had some issues with an ex, which was not the healthiest thing, which took a lot of energy from me. I was a person who liked to exercise a lot. I was, I had to work out every single day. I had to get my steps in. And if I didn't do that, I felt like a failure. And I just had so many high expectations for myself. I had to eat healthy all the time. I always had plans, was always on the go. I was always out of the house. I'm a very social person, so I love meeting friends. So I never said no to anything. I wanted to, get to do everything. And I didn't have time to be sick. I didn't have time to rest. I think I was kind of addicted to the feeling that, achieving things and being busy and doing things in a fast pace. But I didn't really see that it was not the best for my body to be so busy. You need to find the balance. And that is something that I have realized now
Yeah,
afterwards. So
definitely.
yeah,
It sounds like there's definitely a pattern emerging that we see in so many other people as well. It's like you had this thing going on, the school, then the exercise, then the relationship stuff, and then
yeah,
your social life, this and that. And on top of all of that, I know one of the things I think almost everybody we see in the program, and um, a lot of people who have CFS, it's a type A personality, and
yeah,
it's that feeling of needing to be productive, right? So you're almost like overproductive to the point where your body can't keep up. So
yeah.
were you feeling symptoms prior? Were you getting like fatigue or anxiety or insomnia, things like that?
Yeah, so if we go back to May 2022, I didn't have any symptoms before that, but the moment I pressed the button to submit my bachelor thesis, I got a huge panic attack. And I had never had that before, so it was obviously very uncomfortable. And I think it was just a stress reaction to all the things that I've been doing the last 6 months. But I tried to just like forget about it and continue with my life. But I noticed that after that point, my sight was blurry, and I was dizzy all the time. And I was that for about a month. And I went to the doctor, and he said, "No, you're fine. Just continue to eat healthy and work out, and just don't think about it." And I did. And then, yeah, 1 month after the panic attack, and that's when my body just completely shut down. So I did have symptoms before, but it was only for a month. So it went really fast, actually.
Yeah. So you had symptoms, but you were still functional. You were able to do things. And then once you
Yeah.
got COVID, what was that like when you first got it? Like that first week? Maybe describe that to us.
Yeah. So I don't know. I had heard a lot of things about COVID, that it was more intense than the usual flu. So I was like, okay, this is very tough, but it's probably just how it's supposed to be. And my body was heavy. I had lots of fatigue. I think yeah, at that time I sometimes I struggle to just close my mouth when chewing.
Mm.
Um, I was dizzy. I had a flu-like symptoms. I was fainting. I was nose bleeding. It was a lot of things going on, but I didn't start freaking out about it because I thought that, okay, this is how
Like
COVID
flu.
is.
It's like, oh,
Yeah,
this is normal. Okay. Yeah.
it's normal. And then I was in bed for 3 days, and I've always been a person who, I don't have time to be sick. So 3 days was a lot for me in bed at that time. And my family also got COVID, but they started getting better after 3 days. So they started getting on walks and doing things. And I was like, why am I not getting better? Um, so I started to push myself. I thought maybe I'm just lazy or whatever. So I pushed myself, and I got into the cycle of the push and crash. For a few months, I made some progress, and then it was back down again. Made some progress, and I didn't really find that balance. And then actually, only 2 months after getting COVID, I found your YouTube channel, and I saw a video where you talked about, what this is, and the symptoms and how it works, because this is so different than any other types of diseases or whatever I've had previously. And you talked about the progress cycles and adjustment periods, and that you actually need to nudge your symptoms a little bit, and then your symptoms will go up, then you pull back, and then when that whole phase is over, then you will have a new capacity. So
Mhm.
I just started doing those things, and I made actually a lot of progress the first 6 months, to the point where I was actually able to hike, and I was able to walk 10,000 steps, 15,000 steps, um, but I still had lots of symptoms. So yeah,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the
So you were implementing this stuff on your own for about 6 months, and
yeah,
it was working really well. And it's interesting that it sounds like you found CFS recovery pretty early on, because some people don't find us for 6 months, 12 months, multiple years of being sick, but you found us like 2 months after, right? So is that because you pretty much got all your tests and scans done? They couldn't find anything. So you just said, okay, let me research this on my own.
so when I first got sick, I tried to get a doctor appointment, but it was 4 weeks of waiting time. and they would just say, this is, you will get better, but just take it easy. And yeah, didn't really give me any help. So I started Googling or I started searching on YouTube for long COVID first. And then, yeah, I found a little bit of things. And then I heard about like post-viral fatigue. So I started searching for that. And then I was like, okay, chronic fatigue, this is probably something similar. So I typed in chronic fatigue, and then I found your YouTube channel. And then when I saw the video, everything just clicked for me.
That's right. So you make tons of progress. You're implementing all this stuff. What would you say was the biggest thing that helped when you were doing this stuff on your own? And it's so hard to pinpoint because there's so many things you do. But for me, for example, once I realized, oh, okay, it's just a hypersensitive nervous system. That makes sense. So I just need to fix that one thing. That's what made it easy for me. But what do you think was the big, mind shift for you that helped you go from struggling with all these symptoms to building yourself up to 10,000 steps a day?
I think, well, actually never in this whole illness journey of mine, I have never thought I'm never going to recover. And when I found your video, I was like, okay, I will recover because he has the answers. And now I know what this is. And just I feel like really just hearing about the science behind it, and just a little bit explanation of what this is, that really gave me relief. And I felt like, okay, this will get better. So I never really stopped believing in myself. And I think that's the biggest thing. And also I learned that, well, to some degree, I learned, to expand and pull back. But I did come very far for 6 months. But then I went to my doctor again, and I said, okay, I'm doing so well now, and I've been implementing all these things with adjustment periods. And then he said, okay, well, now you're recovered, so just go back to your old life, and just forget about all of these rules. Just, I still had some symptoms left, but he was like, just ignore them, they will just go away. So that's what I did. And that was my mistake, going back to my old life. I have realized now, later on. And then what actually happened is, just only a few weeks later, after I was at the doctor, I got COVID again. Yeah, it wasn't as bad as the first time. I pulled back for 2 weeks, but then I was like, okay, 2 weeks is a long time. Now it's like, why is it so long? Because I had only had adjustment periods for 3 days before that. I didn't have any long adjustment periods, actually. So then I thought about what the doctor told me, and he said, you think like a normal person, just ignore the symptoms. I started pushing again. And a few days later, I completely crashed. And that was, yeah, then I was afraid after that. So.
And that was, when was that? Around November of last year?
No, actually, that was in February 20.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was before I joined the program. And I was terrified because I'd been working so hard, and then suddenly I just lost all the progress in the blink of an eye. And I didn't, yeah.
Especially because so many people, and I went through this myself 3 times, where I build myself up, and I couldn't say I was fully recovered because, yeah, I could work full time, I could go out, but I still had some kind of symptoms, and I was still a bit careful. And I built myself to that level, 10,000 steps a day, 15, I was fine. Then I crashed again, like hard. Then I get better again, then I crash even harder. So it's like, yeah, you put in all this work to build yourself up, and then just like that, it feels like you're back to square one, if not worse.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, it's going to take so long to get to where I was.
And I was like, is this so fragile that I can just lose it all like that? And I didn't understand why it happened. And then, that year was like, I was expanding, but I was so careful. So my progress was super slow. And like, let's go to October 2023, some months after, I was able to walk for 5 minutes. So that was kind of what I had expanded. And because I was so afraid, and I didn't understand why that happened, I thought that it was very fragile, but now I do understand why it happened when I joined the program. So the reason why I joined it is because, I was making a little bit of progress, but then suddenly this fatigue, the feeling of dying, suddenly just rotated in. And I felt like, oh no, now it's happening again. I need to pull back. I'm doing too much again. I'm pushing. And I pulled back to the point where I was bedbound for 3 months. And that was kind of the final drop. Now I was like, now I just need to get some help because I have no idea what I'm doing. And this is
Mm,
not working. So, and
yeah.
I knew you had the answer.
Yeah. And I mean, you were probably trying the stuff that you initially tried that helped you get better, but this time you just needed something more specific, right? Like your body wasn't cooperating.
I was
Wasn't.
afraid, and I pushed myself a little bit more in the beginning, but now I was super careful, too careful. So it's a
Yeah.
balance. Yeah.
Yeah. And we see that a lot. And for you, that was one of your biggest roadblocks, right? And that's where we actually, I remember working with you, uh, especially Coach Junior and the other coaches, we created this kind of new method for somebody who is almost in this analysis paralysis, or it's like the fear of making a mistake
Yeah.
because something so bad happened in the past where you lost all this progress. So you almost feel paralyzed to try anything. It's
Mhm.
scary to stand up too fast or try walking for 10 minutes versus 5 minutes because
Yeah.
you're so scared you're going to go back to square one. So we have to do things a little bit differently. So you decided to come on board. This was about just over a year ago, right?
Yeah, exactly 1 year ago, I think. Yeah.
Exactly one
Mm.
year ago. And at that
Mm.
point, you were bedridden for about 3 months, you said, just not making
Yeah.
progress, stuck. Yeah.
I pulled
So
back,
you're
I responded well, but nothing happened. I was stuck. Yeah.
mm, got it, got it. And so what was the biggest difference between implementing the stuff on your own versus being able to implement it with the coaches and also just being on live calls with other people regularly?
So I think, like at that time, I had been sick for almost 1.5 years, and I had been working a lot on my mindset. So I wasn't like afraid of the symptoms in itself. I was afraid of doing something wrong. So I felt like, okay, I'm responding well. I'm not freaking out about it. So what am I doing wrong? Um, and then I started the program, and like I knew that you would have the answer because it had worked before for me, and also I had been watching lots of the Q&As with you guys on Facebook,
Mhm.
and I really trusted you guys. And then actually the first call with Junior, I thought he would be very gentle and kind and be like, this will be okay, you're doing so well, and just what you want to hear. But he told me what I needed to hear. And at that time it was tough because was at such a fragile state, but now I'm super grateful for it. So he told me that, or after a few questions, he asked me about my activity levels, which was basically nothing. I couldn't sit, I couldn't look at screens. I went to the bathroom twice a day. That was pretty much everything I did. And he told me, what you're doing now is not working. It is not working for you. You have to start moving more, even though you feel like you're going to die, because I had that feeling of dying 24/7. And I was kind of shocked. I was like, "Oh wow, okay, I'm gonna prove him wrong, and I'm gonna show him that I can do this." And he gave me the plan, and only a few days later, my symptoms started going down, and I trusted him 100%. He said, "You go up and down that hallway, and you're gonna feel like you're gonna die, but then you're just gonna tell yourself, I don't care if I'm gonna die. Like, just believe in yourself and trust this process." And I did. And a month later, I was no longer bedbound, and my symptoms had reduced quite a lot. So, and we just took it step by step, and I did everything he told me to do. And super grateful for him being, yeah, such a great coach, and that he
Yeah.
helped me so much, and being so strict with me, if you want. Yeah, that's what I needed.
Yeah, very, it's strict, but like very clear on what needs to be done based on, you know, where people are at. And I think for you, one of the things he was saying is like, once we realize, okay, you have actually made tons of progress in the past, so it is somewhere in your brain where your brain knows how to get, it knows that, or it has the capability, the ability to get better. It just forgot how to access those places. So for you, we were like, okay, this approach, this is the approach we're going to use with Johanna. For people watching this, you know, we don't do that for everybody. Only if it is the right method for them, because some people, they need some time to adjust to it. But you already understood all the principles because you had implemented.
I needed a plan. I needed someone to tell me, do this and this, and or kind of just how to expand when you're at such a high symptom level. So then it gets kind of tricky, and like you're saying, it's kind of a different approach because you have to challenge it a little bit.
Yeah.
So
And it was just like me when I was in a wheelchair. Going from wheelchair to standing up and using a walker was very, very difficult. Actually, the hardest was when you're not moving at all to starting to move. That's probably the most difficult one. When you start walking on your feet and even sitting up. I think sitting up was harder. It was harder to transition into that than it was to like walk outside, because it's such a huge jump, you know. But we built a personalized roadmap plan for you, built a plan, and you followed it. And what was going through your mind at first, actually, when Junior put that plan together and said, hey, here's your roadblock, but here's what we're going to do? Or you at all at any point thinking like, hey, this is crazy, but I got to do it? What were you thinking?
Like it didn't sound right that, okay, you're just going to do this and this and this. And if you feel like you're going to die, then you're still going to do it. It doesn't make sense. Like anyone would think, oh, if I feel like I'm going to die, I need to rest. But I had already been resting for 3 months and it didn't work. And I just trusted him so much, and you and the program, that I just did it. And he also told me one of my roadblocks was that I was overthinking. And he told me, you need to stop overthinking because it's not going to help you. So I tried to just keep it as simple as possible and just listen to what he said. And even though it didn't feel right, even though after every single call I got a very huge increase in symptoms that were already very high. And I remember I had this teddy bear that I had when I was a little kid, and I just had to squeeze it like 24/7 just to try to get some sort of a strength, because it was just about getting through the day. But I trusted the process, and you just, you need to have patience and do the right things, and then things will get better. So I think that's the biggest thing. I trusted him. Yeah.
Yeah, the trust. Like I know you've mentioned trust a handful of times already. I think it's so it's so useful to have that in the beginning, especially if you're in a fragile state. Maybe not even physically, but even if you're somewhat functional and your mindset is in a fragile state where you're terrified to do anything or make mistakes and go back to square one. It makes such a huge difference to be able to almost outsource decision making to somebody else that you trust. It's like, okay, Junior, he was just as bad as I was. Miguel, he was just as bad as I was. So they know what this is like. They wouldn't tell me something that would make me worse because they've done this. So I think being able to take that that big decision making off of your plate makes such a huge difference. It's like me with my doctor. When he was telling me, he said a similar thing Junior said to you. He said, Miguel, you could stand up right now. You could go run across the room. You're not going to die. Yeah, you're going to feel a lot of symptoms. It's going to feel like you're going to die, but you're not actually going to, just stop breathing. It may feel like it. And once I realized that, okay, this thing it's not, it can't kill me. Like in that moment right there, it took away a lot of fear because I knew it would be uncomfortable, but it wasn't going to be to that extreme point. So it really helped when I had that mind shift. And for you, yeah, go ahead. You're gonna say something.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that parents were saying lots of things, and they were reading things online. You need to do this and this and this, but I couldn't trust them as much because they hadn't been through it. So it's so important and such a good thing that you all have been through it and you know what it's like, and you know what to do. And that was so such a relief to just, okay, Juno will take the decision making, and I can just do whatever he says, and that's it, pretty much.
Yeah. Was there anything new that you learned when you were inside the program, like using our recovery system and working more closely with the coaches that you didn't that didn't click before, that you didn't realize were important before when you were doing this stuff on your own?
Yeah, so actually, one of the first group calls, Junior talked about the gray behavior.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, and I had never heard about that before. I knew that I needed to have a balance, but I didn't know how important it was. And it comes like it's for the physical activity, you have to be in the gray. You can never rest 100%. You have to always do a little bit, and then when you expand, then you do a little bit more, and then you kind of move like a snake. That was kind of a mind shift for me, and also with the mindset, and basically everything that you do in life is, it's not all or nothing. Everything is supposed to be in the gray. That's the most healthy. And then also we had he asked everyone to write down all the negative or the not so healthy personality traits. And I wasn't aware of that I actually needed to change my personality traits in order to recover, and most importantly, in order to stay recovered.
Mhm.
Um, because, like I mentioned, I almost recovered, but then I got sick again because I went back to my old life and back to my old personality traits, such as perfectionism, always on the go, hard on myself, ambitious, all or nothing, never time to rest, impatience, and overthinking. So, by really, really working on those and being aware that you need to gray those out, and kind of change how you perceive life and how you choose to live your life, that is the biggest thing that I've learned from this, and it's such a game changer. And life is so much easier when you're not so hard on yourself, and yeah, it's more gray. So I
Yeah.
think those things are, yeah, were game changers for me.
Yeah, yeah, the gray behavior and staying balanced, and just not having such a strong like type A personality. That's what I realized too. We don't realize that there are a lot of things that can be just as stressful on your body as physical things. Because I think when we first get sick, at least for me, I thought, okay, this physical problem, I need to fix it physically. Food, I'll try to sleep, I'll try to do this and that. But I mean, our thoughts, our thinking patterns and habits, that can be a huge drainer on us as well. It's like an energy leak because there's all this stress going. So yeah, you do definitely look at life from a different perspective once you change those things and you kind of come out the other side, kind of where you're at in your journey right now. Life does feel a lot easier, and it's a lot. It's a much better experience because you're able to enjoy all of these things versus just rushing through life trying to be as productive as you can. You know.
Yeah, I feel like I have such a much a more relaxed relationship to life now. And I've realized before, I would, if I didn't achieve the things that I wanted to achieve, then I would look at myself as a failure. And then I was like, I can't be happy before I have achieved whatever goal. But the truth is, and that is something that you realize, that once you hit those goals, then you're just going to find new goals that you want to achieve. And if you base your happiness of like, okay, I can be happy when that happens and when I do this and that, then you're never going to be happy. So what I really worked on while being sick was trying to find things in my life that I, at every stage of recovery, that was good in my life, that made me happy. And you kind of rewire your brain to think in a more positive way and a more come the word now, but
It's like a more sustainable, healthier
solutions,
way.
kind of, yeah, instead of only negative, try to see the positive in things, and find solutions. And then you realize things that were problems before are not problems anymore. You think much more logically, And when you can find good things in every situation, you kind of gray it out as well, and it makes life so much better. And happiness comes from within. And I try, like when I was bedbound, my mom would light a candle so that I could have a little cozy vibe when I was laying there, even though I had lots of symptoms. And when I was couch bound, or I could just sit, and I was sitting and I was watching or looking out of the window, I would watch the sunrise, and I would drink a cup of tea. I would listen to podcasts when I could do those things. And I'm really passionate about nutrition. That is something that I study, and I will get back to my studies next year. But and I was actually looking forward to wake up and go and listen to the podcast, because I think it was so interesting. So finding things that make you happy and things that give you motivation, and trying to find the good things in life, that really helps help you recover, because then the brain is like, oh, okay, I don't have to be in danger or whatever survival mode. She can actually enjoy her time a little bit as well. And yeah, I think it makes the whole system relax a little bit more, which makes your progress go even faster, if that
Oh
makes
yeah,
sense.
totally.
Yeah.
Because you're much more present too. You're able to really have a deeper experience with life, I think. And it's
Yeah.
funny you mentioned the candle thing, because I did that a lot too. Once I got better, I would actually just like sit in the bathtub, or at nighttime, just light a candle and hang out, because it was like a cozy vibe. You just watch the candle move back and forth. And I
Yeah.
remember it's like nothing else mattered. I don't care what happens tomorrow or yesterday, whatever, what's outside. You're just enjoying the scent of the candle. And, it's so interesting how different life is when you could really be present. And even me, like, as life happens, as we start to reintegrate back into the world, you almost kind of forget that in some ways. Like even me, I have to manually remind myself to be present. But
Mm.
once you learn these things, it's really nice, because also as you're coming out of this illness, it's almost like you're experiencing things for the first time again, but through a different lens. You miss
Yeah,
things
you're
out
so
of time.
grateful for it. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
just sorry.
No, like you know, looking out the window, watching the sunrise, and just really
Mm.
being able to enjoy it with a cup of tea. But that sunrise has been doing that for 22 years of your life. But it's
Mm.
only now that we are able to sit down and really, really enjoy it. You know.
Yeah. I think it's important to show the brain that, the brain is in survival mode, and it actually thinks that you're in danger, but show the brain that you're not in danger, you are safe, because you are. And by doing things that make you happy, that is actually signaling to the brain that, okay, you can let go of the symptoms little bit, and you're safe. And that is the whole key to recovery. I think it's to make the brain feel safe again, so it can lower the symptoms and give you capacity back.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Exactly.
being in the or staying in the 3-foot world, like you've talked about, it's kind of the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah. Now, when you were in your flare ups, because you've been through many, many flare ups, APs, progress cycles, what are some things you told yourself to help you get through it? Because sometimes, even though we know that this is part of recovery, it's still physically challenging. You're still feeling the pain, you're still feeling the discomfort. So, what are some things that you did or said to yourself to help you get through those APs?
I think before I started the program, I would really like I would do, the expanding and pulling back, but was afraid of the symptoms. I would try to avoid the symptoms and distract myself. Um, but after I started the program, and a few months later, I had a big adjustment periods for about 6 weeks, and it was like I was back at square one. But that dying feeling of fatigue, instead of thinking, oh, this is like, oh, it's so hard and I just have to stay strong, I try to just let go and I told myself, kind of, I surrender, kind of like, okay, just do your thing, go through me, just do whatever you want to do, fatigue, I don't care, just do it. And try to just be relaxed and calm, and show the brain that you're not fighting it. Because if you're fighting it, then it's also sort of a resistance. And the brain will catch up on that and be like, okay, she's fighting something, then I need to protect her. So I try to just tell myself, okay, whatever, just I surrender, or do whatever you want to do. It's fine. And the moment I could do that, and I got better and better at doing it, but the moment I could just kind of like let go and just the symptoms would actually go away a lot faster. I just kind of accepted it and just let it do its thing. It was one time that I was sitting in a chair, and then suddenly I felt like fainting, and my first thought was like, oh no, I'm fainting. But then I was like, you know what? Go ahead. If I'm gonna faint, then I'm gonna faint. I'm sitting in a chair, a comfortable chair. It's not the end of the world. I'm gonna wake up after anyways. And when I could just kind of let it happen, then it didn't happen. It's kind of a paradox. Just accept it, and then the system will calm down immediately, because it's when you try to resist it, that's when the problems start happening.
It's like this analogy with the symptoms. You know, our brain knows which buttons to press, which triggers to do to keep us in survival mode. So it knows which symptoms to trigger to put us in this fear, survival, like fight or flight mode. So essentially, you know, when people are on that downward spiral, their mentality is, it's almost like a prey, and the predator is the symptoms. Every time a symptom comes up, you try to run away from it. Even mentally, you try to distract yourself and resist it. But that's almost like running faster away from a predator, but it'll just chase you even harder. So that flips once you realize, oh wait, these symptoms, there's nothing to be afraid of here. It's just a process in my body. It's just a glitch in the nervous system. So it's almost like you as the prey, you stop, you turn around and say, wait a minute, you really can't do anything to me. It's uncomfortable, but can't do anything. So now you start to become the predator, and you start saying, oh yeah, symptom, what are you going to do? Are you going to make me faint in this chair? Okay, do it. See what happens. And then it doesn't do it. It actually loses its power, because now that dynamic switches. You are now seeking out the symptoms. And the way fight or flight and survival mode doesn't work like that. It can't put you in that state if you're the one chasing it down. So I had the same experiences. Like, my big thing was heart rate issues, you know, pot symptoms, palpitations. And when I was in adjustment periods, it would beat so fast. And I used to think I was always having a heart attack, but this has happened thousands of times. So it got to the point where I would have that, I'd have shortness of breath, and I would say, okay, let's see how fast you could get. Can you get up to 200 beats per minute? You should go faster, see if you could do it. And I would almost dare it to go faster. And then it almost lost its power. Then it started to slow down. And I was like, oh man, I was actually kind of excited to see what was going to happen.
Yeah. You're not afraid of it anymore. And Junior also asked me once, because fatigue was my main thing. And he asked me, well, what does the fatigue make you feel? And then I said, it's uncomfortable and I wanted to go away and all those things. And he said, well, in order to get rid of the fatigue, you have to do the opposite. You have to accept it, and you have to have patience with it. And you're not going to try to get it away. Just let it be. And that's kind of a reverse way of thinking about it. Just accept it, and then there's no need for the symptom to come, because it doesn't bother you anymore. But it takes time, of course. But yeah, that's kind of what I try to do. Yeah.
It takes a lot of course correcting throughout the journey as you go through these adjustment periods. So how helpful or how impactful was it being able to lean on a coach like Junior and have regular check-in calls and adjust your plan? Because we did that a lot, right? Maybe every week or 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks. How important was it or how helpful was it to be able to talk to a coach about it and have a plan?
Yeah, it was everything, because he told me what to do, and I just had to do it. And then he would update the plan, and he would also tell me, okay, so in 3-4 months, you will have a huge adjustment period. And then when you come out of that, then you're going to have a huge capacity increase. And exactly that happened. I don't know how he knew that, but it was very good to have someone who knew how this would go, and he could kind of warn me. And if I had any problems or difficulties, then I could just send him a message, and he would always try to balance me. His answer would be so to either kind of make me feel less afraid, or if I was a little bit too hyped up, then he would try to down regulate me. And it was very helpful, and he would always answer my questions with logic, and yeah, it meant everything because I could trust him, and I didn't really have to take in so many choices myself. And then also the group calls, which was kind of scary in the beginning, but later on it was something that I really was looking forward to, and I made lots of new friends, and we were able to share experiences and give each other tips. And I think it's so important to have a group of people that are going through the same thing as you, because you can feel quite lonely in this. You don't really hear about so many people who have long COVID, but there are a lot of people, but you don't hear about it. And this program just kind of gathers or collects many people with the same situation, and you feel like you're part of a community, and everyone understands you, and it's great. I have never, since starting the program, I have never felt alone in this illness, because there were so many people around me, and the coaches, and the help was there. So I'm just so grateful that I found you guys. It's changed my life. Yeah, 100%.
And you put in the work too. And the isolation is a big thing with CFS or long COVID as well. Like when you're in your own little world, if you're not in a community that's solution focused, it's very hard to find people to relate to, even family sometimes. As much as they love and support us, you can't really have a deep conversation with them about the symptoms or what you're going through, because they just won't understand. All right. It's so hard to describe what you're feeling to someone who's never had it. But when you're around other people who are also experiencing these things, but they're also very solution focused, I think that's where the magic happens, because they're not here to just talk about how bad it is, how they lost their lives, how they can't do this and that. They're like, well, what do we do about it? How do we get better? And you see other people recovering, and it's inspiring for you. And then when you have good weeks, you share your wins, other people get inspired. It's like an upward spiral, essentially.
Yeah, supporting each other. And also what I love is, well, I've actually always been quite fascinated about this illness. I think it's very interesting to learn more about it, what happens in the brain and what happens in the body. Krista has talked a little bit about that, and also the self-development, the what's it called, the themes or topics that Junior talks about with, this journey is not only about recovering, but it's about becoming, like you say, the 2.0 version of yourself. And I've always loved self-development. And yes, it's just a mix of the coaching and the self-development and learning the science behind it, talking to lots of people, having this community and cheering on each other. Yeah, it's just the perfect mix, I feel like.
Yeah. So now, I feel like as you move forward on your journey and you start to reintegrate back into life, a big interest is personal development, because that's really what CFS is. And going through this journey, it's like extreme personal development.
Yeah.
It's like you have no choice but to, develop your mindset and change for the better, or else it's very difficult to get better. So what would you say is different now, like where you are today, than, let's say, right before you joined us? So or let's just say a year and a half ago, when you had that crash at your worst. How different is your life now? Let's start physically. What can you do now that you couldn't do a year and a half ago?
Well, at that time I was bedbound. I was struggling, like my body was stiff and heavy. I was even struggling to just get my hand up to my mouth. I had to get fed sometimes, and I had to sit when showering. So many symptoms. And now I barely have symptoms. They come and go a little bit, but they're very manageable and very mild. So I'm basically symptom free most of the time. I am working part-time. I can travel. I'm actually going to visit a friend. I'm going by plane next week. I can travel, I can meet friends, I can go out and dance at the club, I can walk as much as I want to. I have hiked a few times, I can go shopping, and at work, I'm currently now working at a clothing store, and I'm standing for 6 hours walking around, and it's no problem at all.
Wow.
So it's quite physical, but it feels so good, and I feel so normal, and I feel so calm and peaceful and happy with my life. And I know that, yeah, I have a few symptoms left, but they will fade away eventually with time. So I'm happy. I'm just very grateful and happy, and I can do basically whatever I want to do.
And
So
as you're doing those things, like when you're standing up for 6 hours at work or walking around traveling, um, are you ever worried about, well, what if I do too much? What if I flare up? Does that ever cross your mind anymore?
not really, because I know that if I were to come in a little bit more intense AP, I could handle it. You learn how to handle it, and once you master that skill, then you're not really afraid of symptoms anymore. And obviously, if I were to run 10 kilometers now, which I haven't done in a while, I wouldn't do that, because it doesn't make any sense. So you have to use some logic as well, with the increasing, and just do it gradually, and give your body a good opportunity to gradually ease into things. And Yeah, no, I'm not afraid of getting COVID again. I'm not afraid of the symptoms, because I can handle it. And
And
yeah,
that's a huge thing. That's a huge thing when you recover, but you know exactly what you did to recover and how you recovered, why. So you know you have the tools within. If ever it happens again, like me, if I ever got CFS again and I ended up bedridden, I'd know what to do to
yeah,
get better. If I got COVID tomorrow and it hit me hard and then, yeah, I crashed somehow, I know exactly what to do. There's no more mystery in it.
no,
You don't feel powerless. You feel empowered because you know exactly what to do. So
yeah.
physically, life is different. How about mentally? How would you say you look at the world differently now? And you touched on it a little bit earlier, like more present,
Yeah.
more gratitude.
Um, yeah. So if I go back to my personality traits, I was really hard on myself. I would, for example, let's say now that I started a new job a few months ago, before getting sick, I would be super nervous, and I would be so afraid of doing anything wrong, and I would be so stressful about it. But now I'm so much more kinder to myself, and I'm like, okay, if I do some mistakes, that's totally fine. Everyone does mistakes. That's the only way that you can learn. And that in itself, while having that mindset, it makes me so less much, or how do you say it? I'm not so nervous about things anymore, because I don't put so much of a pressure on myself. I have, like I said, a much more relaxed relationship to life. Perfectionism, like I was before. Oh, I need to do this and this and this in order to be perfect. I'm not like that anymore, because life is not okay. You need to work out every single day. Unless you do that, you're a failure. It just doesn't make any sense to me anymore why I was living that way. um Much easier on myself, and much more grateful. And because of that mindset, and I'm not overthinking so many things anymore, because of that, I feel just more chilled and relaxed. And um for example, this interview, I if I would have had such an interview before getting sick, I would be so nervous that I couldn't sleep for many days in advance. I couldn't eat. Like, it would be crazy. But now I feel like, it will be fine. You're fine. I'm kinder to myself, and that also takes away the nervousness about challenges in life, and also small things that made me upset before. It's not really a problem anymore, because I know how much worse it can be with
Yeah.
this being sick. And I was like, why did I even use any energy on stressing about things that I cannot control? It's no need to do that, because yeah, life happens, and you just have to adapt to it, and have a good mindset is everything. So
Mhm.
a
Yeah.
lot of things changed.
Yeah. Especially when you go through the difficult times, like when you get to a point where you can't sit up out of bed, you can't shower, you just don't have the freedom to do things, it really makes you appreciate everything once you get better. And even if you're having a rough day or things seem like they're going wrong, for me, I just think back to 5 or 6 years ago. I couldn't do anything. Actually, the life I live now, it's like the dream life I had before, times 1,000, because all I
Mhm.
wanted to do before was be able to sit up at the dinner table and eat with my family and feel normal. If I could do that, I was like, I'll be the most thankful person ever. Like, I'll never complain ever again. Just let me have no symptoms. Because at that time it was like impossible. But it goes to another thing of like, you don't have to have conditions on being happy. Like, I have to get here, then I'm good. Here, then I'm good. Because us as humans, we're always going to stretch that goal, you know? So what does your family think about all this? I mean, you're pretty close to them. I see them in your wins. They saw you at your worst, but also recovering.
They have been the best support ever. They have, yeah, always believed in me, and I think it. I don't know. I haven't talked about like with them how it has been difficult for them, but I can think that being a parent and having a daughter that is sick, and they couldn't really do anything about it. So I think it must have been hard for them as well. But my mom, she actually quit. She took a break from her job to take care of me, and yeah, I'm just so grateful that I have them, and they've always cheered on me. And yeah, it goes back to how important it is to have a support system around you, that cheer on you, and the community or the family and friends. And yeah, it's when you're in the darkest times of your life that you see who is actually there for you, and how much they care for you. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, very grateful for those.
Oh yeah. Well, they're probably thrilled they have their daughter back, and you guys can do all this
Yeah,
fun stuff. You
yeah,
know, it's it's cool seeing them in all of the wins you post. You guys are very close. It's
yeah.
very heartwarming to see. So for people watching this right now, let's say they're dealing with CFS and long COVID, and they're where you were about a year and a half ago, struggling. They're looking for hope and inspiration, and they're seeing your story. And they're thinking, wow, how did she do that? Like, does she have some superpower, or, is some magic that she did? Like, what are some words you want to share with people just to, give them hope and encouragement and just help them?
Yeah, so when I was at my worst, I was watching these videos, and they gave me hope, and now I'm here. And I remember I was thought, like, how did they do it? Like, did they, like, oh, they must be special or whatever. But first of all, I think the most important thing is you have to believe in yourself, because yes, you will get the coaching and the help, but at the end of the day, it's you that's going to do the work. And if you don't believe in yourself, then it's going to get really hard. So you have to believe in yourself. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust the coaches if you have a coach. That is one thing. I always knew I would recover, because not recovering was just not an option for me. And then also, I would try to keep it as simple as possible. I would really try to stop the overthinking and just go by, okay, when the symptoms are manageable, then you gradually expand. And when they get to the point of overwhelming, then you pull back again. And you do that, and you respond well, of course. And I would just try to keep it as simple as possible, and don't overcomplicate it. Also, have patience. It's not a straight line. It's a lot of ups and downs. But if I can do it, then you can do it. Of course, a lot of people say that, but it's true. And you have to just trust the process, believe in yourself, and you will get there 100%.
Yeah, you'll get there. So many people get there, and you see the people on the CFS Recovery channel. There's people who post in the community, and there's so many people who just recover and you never hear from them again because they just move on with their lives. So, there are so many people who are recovering. I think it's becoming more and more common nowadays. It's almost like the expectation. No, it is the expectation, not almost. Like when they come into the community, that is the expectation. It's like, all right, you're going to get there. you're in the right place. So anything exciting that's coming up for you in the next, several months over here with all this capacity you have and getting back into life? Anything big? I mean, you're traveling next week, right?
Yeah, I'm traveling next week to visit a friend. That will actually be the first time flying in over 2.5 years. So it's very exciting. But I'm looking forward to it. And other than that, I am just going to continue increase my hours at my job. And I have a few trips to Sweden and Denmark coming up next year. It's just something that I'm looking forward to. Life is really good. And then just, yeah, my plan is just to live life and hang out with friends. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
It's been a wild journey for you. A wild, what is it, 2.5 years? No, you got this in 2021,
Yeah,
right?
so
Two.
2022, so 2.5 years almost. Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot happened in that 2.5 years. But it's almost like you condensed maybe 10 or 15 years of life experience of ups and downs, emotions, learning about yourself into like 2.5 years. It's such a transformational window of time in your life. But you made it to the other side of the CFS journey, and now is a new chapter, which is very,
Yeah.
very exciting. So
I think my life will be so much better now after having learned all of these things and these tools. And I'm very excited to see what happens. Yeah.
yeah. And my last question for someone who is listening to this and they've been struggling for a while, looking for different things. They tried so many things, but they're on the fence of potentially joining something like the academy. Uh, what would you say to someone who's sitting on the fence saying, I don't know if it's going to work for me? Is this stuff real? Like, does it actually work? What would you say to them?
I feel like if you're never gonna try, you're never gonna know. Like you have to give it a shot and see, because I've seen so many people made huge of progress in this program. And try it out, see if it's something for you. You have nothing to lose if of course you have the economics to it. And yeah, it's the best, how do you say it, it's the best decision I've made in my entire life to join this program. I'm so happy that I did it. And yeah, just trust it, trust the process, and trust yourself. And
Yeah,
yeah,
trust it.
can
It's
do.
absolutely possible. And Johanna was watching these recovery interviews like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, and was telling herself, I want to be on there one day. And now she's here. So it's come full circle. And for you guys watching this right now, it's not that crazy to set that as a goal, because some of you watching this right now will be in a video just like this, sharing your story, inspiring more people. Even if you're bedridden right now, recovery is absolutely possible. So hope you guys enjoy this one. Lots of golden nuggets and knowledge, and just very inspiring journey shared by Johanna here. So if you're looking for some extra help, if you need some more guidance and a little more support than you have right now, we can help you. We'd have to see if you're a good fit. As long as you're a good fit, we could help build a personalized plan, help adjust things, and make sure you know exactly what you need to do every week in order to get to thriving health. So I hope you guys enjoy this one. Comment your biggest takeaway down below. And if you were interested in getting some extra help, there's a link in the description. So Johanna, thank you so much for sharing your story on here. This is just sort of a new chapter in your life. And for all you guys watching right now, always remember that you are a thriver and you are just one mind shift away from living a life with thriving health. We'll see you guys in the next video. Johanna, again, thank you so much. Keep on crushing it.
Thank you. Bye bye.